When people think of how to solve climate change, people often think of recycle more often, plant more trees and use less energy. But it isn't just so easy, you know? So, I mean, everybody says plant more trees, right? But we do quite the opposite. We cut down trees and build furniture out of them. And in the place of trees, we have huge apartment complexes and factories, right? But I think we all share a bit of appreciation, right, to furniture and factories, right? Because we couldn't live without them, right? So I think we should find a compromise. Uh, the compromise I will talk about later. So deforestation. It is one of the main factors of climate change, and I think everybody knows about deforestation and how big of a problem it really is. And frankly, I don't really want to talk about it too much, but let's visualize how much climate change really has the effect on our environment. So each day, every day, there's 42 million trees that get cut down. So 42 million trees is a pretty big number that personally I can't comprehend, and most people won't either. So let's divide 42 million by 18,000. 18,000 is the approximate tree amount in Central Park, the New York's Central Park. It's pretty famous. And we get about 2,333 Central Parks. So imagine that many trees that get cut down. That's pretty big, you know? So how can we overcome this problem that we have? Trees that get cut down even make our air pollution gets significantly more, causing us to inhale toxic chemicals. And Tbilisi isn't an exception, providing that we have a lot, not a lot, but it exceeds the average amount of air pollution that an average city has. So the thing we can accomplish is biophilia. Biophilia is a kind of a genre of architecture that prioritizes nature as a building element. So imagine more greenery and more natural landscapes and more natural light and more vegetation, you know? So there's a lot of examples, but I will dive into two examples. One being vertical greenery. No, not vertical, green roofs. Biophilia has multiple advantages that I will talk about later, but let's just see what green roofs have to offer. Firstly, let's just explain what green roofs are. It's basically just a plot of land on top of a roof, just a flat roof. And if you really want to be more specific, it's like a complex system of water and drainage and root systems and so on. And they accomplish quite a lot, actually, providing on one building, it's insulated 4.4 degrees of temperature. Well, that might not seem a lot, but 4.4 degrees provides a lot in service life lengthening. I mean, you use much less ventilation than it is needed. So you use more, I guess, if you can say that. Another part is if you really enjoy nature, you can just go upstairs and enjoy and relax, sit on the grass and, you know, just have fun, you know? Another example of how much greenery can affect us is our biology. Greenery has been observed to have an effect on our bloodstream. Much less levels of cortisol, the stress hormone cortisol, has been seen when people have been observing greenery. If you work near green space or live near green space, you are probably more creative, as surprising that might sound, and people experience much less stress. So much so that you have a decreased chance of depression, and so on. So let's get to another part. Another part is the insulation is a financial benefit. Like, these financial benefits are much more than just insulation, but we can cover that later. But yeah, another example. So another example is vertical greenery, if you want to be fancy, but you can also call it a green wall. Green walls are just clinging and hanging plants that just stick to the size of the surface, and they provide cooling and insulation, but they also provide more natural light than normal buildings, actually, as surprising that might sound. And one example is Alabari metro station that I think most people are familiar with, but it kind of disappeared after a while. But yeah, it's a familiar example. Vertical greenery can help us as in energy conservation. Energy is much more demanding. I mean, we use energy every day, and it even gets more expensive to create energy as time moves on. And I think we can set an example of how much vertical greenery can help us energy-wise, right? So vertical greenery in one specific building has been known to conserve 18% of our energy. Yeah, 18%. That might not sound as big, but 18% is quite a lot considering, let's just say the household consumption of energy, right? So it's about 10,632, so like 10,000 kilowatts per hour per year. So what's 18% of that? Almost 2,000 kilowatt per hour per year, but most people can't comprehend what that is, that one person being me. And to really put it into perspective, if you have a Tesla Model 3, because why wouldn't you? You can charge it 38 times. Yeah. And if you have an electric dishwasher, you can use it almost 1,000 times. And if you have a clock, yeah, for people who have a clock, you can run it for 71 years. That's almost as long as the human lifespan, you know. So yeah, it provides a financial benefit. So not only financial benefits though, because it affects our environment quite a lot, considering that projects like these on average almost absorb 10,000 tons of CO2 emissions. That's 10,000 tons is a pretty big number, and it produces 900 tons of oxygen. So it helps us to be more healthy and alive, you know? So to put that into perspective, I think I'm using Central Park quite a lot, but yeah, it's almost as much as Central Park oxygen and CO2, you know? So another thing that we can say that is that most people will not agree with me, because if this is so awesome and if this is so cool, why isn't it implemented everywhere, right? Well, my answer to that is not everywhere, but in a lot of places, actually. For example, Singapore. Singapore is like one of the richest cities and countries that we probably know, and it's baffled everyone with its rapidly advancing economy, quite frankly. And I think we can really take inspiration from this city. It's not big, but they knew the importance of how much greenery has to offer our environment, and they made an urban infrastructure quite more advanced than, I don't know, a lot of places. They conserved space and planted trees on top of the skyscrapers and on top of the buildings, which I think is a pretty creative way to sort this problem out, right? And nowadays, the coverage of greenery is 50% on the entire Singapore, and it's one of the greenest cities that we know of. The existence of Singapore can quite literally mean that it's not impossible, you know, it's something that a lot of countries can accomplish, and it has a lot of benefits and advantages, right? So I think that provided that the example of Singapore taught us a lot, we can just understand all of the good things that biophilia and greenery and these kinds of structures can bring to our environment, and the financial and biological and all of those benefits can really put the work in, you know? We should prioritize to be more green. And we should understand that it's not just about building more parks and recycling more, although those things are really good, really needed, and really nice, I have to say. But it's not just one answer to this one problem, because there's a lot of answers. One being biophilia, which I think would bring a big and great change to our society right now. Thanks a lot.